Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Politics. I'm here with Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth. You've been out front with a lot of activists up against this pipeline. You've been here before. Want to get your thoughts right off the bat. The Army Corps sent a letter recently. They were talking about the laws that have been broken, garbage on the ground, all these things. Didn't mention any of the laws broken by the police. Do you feel like essentially this looking the other way and letting police do these heinous things, is a sign of things to come in terms of the pipeline possibly be going through, trying to get people off the land now? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the Army Corps is out of league. I mean, they shouldn't be asking us to leave. There's like 10,000 people here from what I could figure. There's more people coming. And, we're here protecting the water and protecting our land. And the Army Corps has been remiss in its duties. And so they have no business asking us to leave. And the federal government should, in fact, be on our side.
And because there's been such a media blackout on this, I mean, the Young Turks has been here, other independent journalists, not a lot of so-called mainstream media. A lot of people that support this pipeline are still under the assumption this is going to be a oil revolution. It's domestic use. Have no concept that most of this is foreign exports. Could you kind of get into that a little bit more so we correct the record on what this pipeline's really about?
So let me just kind of give you a background. I came into this because I've been fighting pipelines in northern Minnesota. We fought this pipeline in Enbridge, fracked oil pipeline out of the Bakken, a 640,000 barrel per day pipeline called the Sandpiper. We fought it for 4 years. We defeated it in August. They announced, the Enbridge company, single largest pipeline company in North America, that they were buying 1/3 of the Dakota Access Pipeline with their pals, Marathon Oil. Now, so that's what happened, and that's how I ended up over here, is because it wasn't right for me, and it's certainly not right for these people. But if you look at what's going on, the Dakota Access Pipeline project was proposed, and the contracts with shippers was signed in 2014. That was at the peak, the apex of the Bakken oil boom. Since then, Bakken has busted. And so now you have 900,000 barrels a day of oil coming out of the Bakken. According to the North Dakota Minerals Office, they project to have 900,000 barrels of oil coming out of the Bakken in 2019. That is 2 years from now. In other words, there's not a projected growth. All of the oil that is presently going out of the Bakken is going out of the Bakken, and it's going out the oil that's going out of the Bakken is going out on rail or on pipeline. And so there's no need for this pipeline. This is really a Dakota Access Pipeline. And so what I understand is that Energy Transfer Partners, according to court documents, signed those shipper agreements. And on January 1st, if they don't have oil running in their pipeline, they kind of turn into a pumpkin. Those shipper agreements are all up for renegotiation. Now, if I was an oil company and I'd signed an agreement in 2014 when the price of oil was high and the price of shipping was high, and now I didn't have oil and the price of oil had dropped significantly, I would want to renegotiate. In fact, I'd probably want to cancel. And so what I think is that this is all about making sure that Dakota Access or Energy Transfer Partners can meet their contracts. It has nothing to do with anything else. And that's what's wrong.
And also, the Energy Transfer was just bought out by Sunoco Logistics, who tops the charts in America for crude oil spills. A lot of people don't get that. There's also subsidiaries of Energy Partners that are involved with this. So the history of this company, and most of these companies, is constant oil spills. But the CEO went on PBS and said there's almost zero chance this will spill, talking about the great steel it's made of.
Well, I mean, the fact is that, first of all, when Trudy Bell, former editor of Scientific American, released a study last year, she reviewed all of the studies about oil pipeline spills, the fact that PHMSA, Pipeline and Hazardous Safety Materials Association, only has about 150 inspectors for all of the pipelines in the United States. That's not enough. And in fact, about 80% of all spills are discovered by people like you and me, not a pipeline inspector. It's you and me who find these things, which is not how it should be, So she found that, looking at all the data, there was a 57% chance of a catastrophic spill on one of these pipelines. A 57% chance. That's a pretty good chance. So they're wrong. They're wrong. Scientists know that they're wrong. I'm looking at pipelines in northern Minnesota right now that are 50 years old. They were put in the 1960s. That was before the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. Those pipelines were put in before any environmental laws, and those pipelines are now leaking. One of those pipelines, known as Line 3, has 900 structural anomalies in it. That's what it's called by Enbridge. Structural anomalies means pinhole leaks, fractures, lots of problems. And they want to replace that line. And what they want to do in northern Minnesota is that they want to abandon that line and build a whole new line and put all this tar sands oil in it. That's what we're about to face now, 760,000 barrels a day of tar sands oil. But the reason I'm saying that is that that's the situation all over this country. There are 50-year-old pipelines that are leaking, and what we should be doing is cleaning up old spills and fixing infrastructure in this country, not building new lines.
And I think there's also an element here, it's kind of a con, because we hear, oh, these pipelines are going to create so many jobs, these are great for the economy, but time after time, there's not a lot of jobs created, and it's been shown not only is wind and solar better for the environment, but it would be better for the economy, the millions of jobs.
Yeah, I mean, the studies that were done on the Keystone, and basically what we're looking at here with the Dakota Access is kind of Keystone Light. Same territory, same region, and my projection is if they can't fill it with oil from the Bakken because there's no oil, they're going to try to link it up to tar sands, and so you'd have basically Keystone Light here, right? And in the studies done by the American Association of Architectural Engineers, the American Engineering Society, they found that there was 5 times as many jobs in infrastructure building in this region, and the country has a D in infrastructure right now. And so that's kind of across the board. My position is that, we just defeated a pipeline in northern Minnesota called the Sandpiper. When we defeated that pipeline, there was 300 miles of pipe sitting up there in northern Minnesota. And I'm looking at that pipe thinking, well, Flint could probably use that pipe. It's not that we don't need pipes in this country. We just need pipes for people, not for oil companies. And there's plenty of jobs in that. And so that's what I think we need to keep pushing for is infrastructure for people, not for oil companies. In the case of the investments in these are going to be known as stranded assets or, in fact, stranded liabilities by the time they're done, because 5-10 years from now, this is going to be one piece of junk up here. And companies, are going to, it's not a good thing.
Last question. President Obama, love him, hate him, he's a smart guy. He knows the history of oil spills. He knows the risks. He's, needs more time, the Army Corps says. He says we're going to give it consideration, might reroute it. What do you think is going into his calculation?
I have no idea what's in that guy's mind. He made some promises to Native people. We would like him to uphold them. And he needs to deny the permit. That's what he needs to do. He needs to deny the permit for this pipeline. Instead of trying to have ask our people to accommodate anything else, he knows full well that if this pipeline would have been, proposed north of Bismarck, that would be a different story. But they proposed it right here in the line of these people. And then, he also knows full well, I am sure, that this pipeline, there's no oil to fill this pipeline. It's just entirely about greed. And he needs to stand with our people.
So obviously there's been divestment campaigns, Susan Sarandon, some mini ones involved. Some banks are talking about taking out some of their investments into Dakota Access. What's your thoughts on the bank culpability as well as the politicians that are bankrolled by those banks?
I feel that there's a huge amount of culpability for all of the damages to our people that have occurred here, and the fact is that, I'm looking at things like Energy Transfer Partners is now owned by a whole bunch of other folks, and a third of it is owned by Enbridge. We feel they're liable for people who have been injured, but beyond that, I feel like that the term is a stranded asset. That's what this is that when you buy something at the end of the fossil fuel era, and you're trying to do something at the very end in a carbon challenged environment, the European Economic Union, international banks, Munich Re, everybody is saying this is a really bad idea. And banks are starting to divest. And so I'm saying this is a loser project. You shouldn't be putting your money in it.